Got all the folks. Louisiana, Hell's Kitchen, Dallas, New Jersey, Raleigh, Brooklyn, Portland, another New Jersey folk. Hello, I'm also in Jersey.
Awesome. All right. Sorry, getting a little trouble with my slide deck here, not acting right. Let's see.
Feel like it's not a great webinar if we don't have technical difficulties at the beginning.
Oh, yes. Okay. Can everyone see that? Awesome. Okay. Well, let's get going. Thanks, Ash, so much for kicking us off there. Sorry, we're starting a couple minutes late, but I hope this is a really fun, productive time, and I look forward to um, just a rich conversation and getting to engage with everyone here and taking your questions and thoughts about product design. So I assume that everyone's here to learn a little bit about what it's like to be in the industry of product design and how Flatiron offers you the opportunity to transition from whatever your career is now into tech and into design. So my name is Joshua Robinson, and I am the director of the product design program here at Flatiron School. So I have been in UI and UX design now for about 10 years and transitioned into teaching education design about 6 years ago. Sienna, I'll just let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I love this picture. Thanks for finding it, Josh.
Great picture.
Oh man, so I am Siana Ortiz. I'm a curriculum designer on the product team, on the product design team, and I've been in learning design for the last 10 years. My career started in China, actually. I started teaching in China, and then I moved over to South Africa and then Germany, and now I am states bound, hailing all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, although I never tell people that I'm from there, but it's nice. And so, yeah, curriculum design. I learn how people learn, and I make sure that the information is delivered so that you're able to learn. And that includes visual design. It includes UX design. It includes learning design and theories and adult learning. Really cool stuff. Anyways, I just want to make sure y'all have fun while you're learning, and that's my life's passion. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And lastly, we have Sabrina Hernandez, who is a graduate from our program. So she's graciously agreed to come and speak a little bit tonight and take your questions about the student experience. So Sabrina, I'm so sorry I didn't have a picture where you actually showed your face, but I was able to find the one that your instructor made for your graduation day. So she's down there on the right with the glasses. But Sabrina,
Yes,
you
that's
just want to
me.
give a little bit about your background and how you transitioned. Just take a minute and talk about how you went from healthcare to product design.
Yeah, no worries at all. First of all, thank you, Joshua, for inviting me here today. Like Joshua said, I am a graduate of Flatiron School in the product design program. Um, this is my second career, so this was a really cool experience for me to transition into a new field. I came from healthcare as a radiology technician, and it took a lot of preparation and time and strategy to land myself here. So it's such a great journey. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sabrina. We're really excited to have you here tonight. Sabrina's awesome. I can't wait for her to tell you more. So the big question of the evening, right? What does a UX UI product designer do? Well, I think that the simple way to say it is they work across all and any phases of the product development, from early exploration all the way to final execution. And that can be research, it can be strategy, and it can be final execution of the product design. So understanding the competitors, the customers, the domain, getting out and talking to the users and talking to your customers, identifying the right opportunities, synthesizing your research and coming up with the right strategy with your stakeholders and clients and helping them decide what's the best way forward and what's the best opportunity that we have to make our customers happy. Then there's also early concept testing, where you might be sketching and ideating and coming up with all kind of interesting ideas. And then you've got to see whether those ideas are going to work or not. So you build prototypes, maybe paper prototypes, maybe digital prototypes. And you run evaluative and usability studies with your customers to decide if you built the right thing and if you built it the right way. Along the entire journey, you're collaborating with software engineers, data scientists, product managers, all kind of stakeholders throughout the whole process. So really, product designers can slot in anywhere in this process. And I'm really pleased to say that our program really teaches you across the full spectrum of these skill sets. So what kind of jobs are out there for product design? Well, let's start by thinking about, well, who hires product designers? Well, the good news is everyone. A quick search across the top companies hiring product designers on Glassdoor yields some of the most recognizable companies in the world. Sienna and I have worked for some of these companies, I believe. So we have intimate knowledge of these different opportunities that are out there for product designers. Interestingly, in the highest paying skill sets in tech in the next 5 years across cloud computing, cybersecurity, AI, machine learning and data, VR, AR, blockchain tech, video production, and user experience, designers work across all of these. There are product design opportunities in all of these different domains and technology sectors. And even LinkedIn, according to their learning survey, ranks in the top 5 soft skills: creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. And this is what's really great about going through a boot camp experience versus perhaps going a more traditional education route, is that you have such an opportunity to practice these skills in a really condensed, intense, really fun environment with some really creative and interesting people. So you're really exercising those soft skill muscles in the boot camp. But then if you move over to the top 10 hard skills, you see the same thing from the HR report in the previous slide, right? Cloud computing, blockchain, AI, UX design being number 5 on the list, which is absolutely part of product design. And according to the World Economic Forum and the Future of Jobs report, they say that the top skills and skill groups that employers see as rising in prominence in the next 5 years includes critical thinking, analysis, problem solving, skills in self-management, active learning, resilience, stress tolerance, flexibility. Again, these are all muscles that you would be really getting your reps in a boot camp environment, right? You really have to be adaptable, you have to be resilient, and you have to be flexible. And you're going to be developing these collaboration soft skills that LinkedIn calls out as so important going into the future job market. Now, there's a lot of barriers that people presume to getting into design, whether UX, UI, or product design. And the first one that I hear a lot from customers is, well, I'm not an artist, or I don't consider myself a creative person. First of all, I think that's BS. I think everyone is a creative person. And besides that, product design is so much more than just what it looks like. Yes, we're going to teach you the fundamentals of visual design. It's an important element in product design, but if you really like research, if you really like UX and sort of the early strategy and wireframing and all of that, if that's what you want to go into, you can go deeper in those areas in our program. Another barrier that I hear a lot is, well, I don't want to learn to code. Well, we do teach you HTML and CSS because web design is part of product design. And it helps you be a better designer. We're not teaching it so that you can go out and learn to do production code. Really, you're learning about the principles behind the code because it does make you a better designer and it makes you a better team collaborator. And what did we just read about being resilient and being flexible and being a collaborator, about how important those are to stand out in the job market, right? So being a better collaborator by having those mental models about code is going to help you. And then there's always the barrier of like, well, I've got a full-time job, right? Or a part-time job. Well, luckily, we've got a part-time program that can help you, be exactly where you need to get and work with you in your life. Another one is, well, maybe I just want to do UX or I just want to do UI. I haven't decided yet. Believe me, a lot of students that come into our course have no idea if they want to specialize in UX or UI or research or do both. The awesome thing about our program is that everyone gets that same core curriculum experience, but we work with them individually to let them specialize and deep dive into the areas where they become most passionate about and where they can really show their skill set. Right? Everyone is going to kind of gravitate to some different places through the projects, through the labs, as they graduate and get out into the job market and figure out what they want to do. Right? Different domains have different specializations, healthcare, financial tech, they all kind of have different things. And so whatever you're interested in, you're going to be able to take that core foundation that we give you and springboard off into where you really want to get to. So I want to spend a few moments going into the curriculum so that you have a good idea of some of what we teach here. Now, I'll get into the specifics of this in just a moment, but I want to call out the big pieces that come together to create the whole experience. So once you sign up for our course, we give you pre-work. All right. It's not a massive amount of work, but we do want to get you up to at least a point where you're confident coming in on day one with how to use some of the tools. So we really use Figma, we use Envision, and Webflow. So we use that pre-work as a time to really onboard you and get you confident in those tools so that you can get going on day one. The first phase is Process UX. This is where we start off learning about design ethics, inclusive and accessible design practices, research, ideation, and innovation. After that, we move into phase 2, which is Process UI. So really focusing on those fundamental principles of visual composition, type, color, interaction, and animation. And then we get into Studio 1. Now, Studio 1 and Studio 2 are where you start working on larger projects for your portfolio that you're going to graduate with, okay? Process UX and Process UI are much like smaller projects that you work on weekly. But Studio 1 and Studio 2, you're going to work with your instructor in more of a project manager relationship. That's when the instructor starts to give you a bit more freedom to do the type of research that you want to do, if that's your thing, or to dive deeper into the visual principles, if that's what you want to highlight. In Studio 2, we get into information design, working in cross-functional teams, and product strategy. And finally, in the portfolio phase is when we let you choose a specialization, whether research, UX, or UI, and you can do a deeper dive project in one of those. And then we also teach you about communicating design. How do you talk about your design decisions? And how do you persuade, be a persuasive communicator when you are presenting your work? And we help you craft a really great portfolio at the end of the portfolio phase and moving into tech prep. So at the end of the portfolio phase is when you graduate, but we're not done, okay? We actually give you a lot of support and help through a tech prep course and a career prep course. And that helps you transition into declaring your job search, right? So we don't just give you a nice portfolio and push you out the door. Absolutely not. That's only half of the battle, right? You are coming in to change your life, to change your career. And so we are going to help you with things like the job search, getting a professional looking resume, networking, interviewing. What do you do when you get competing offers, right? We're there alongside you to help you through that. All right, so again, I'm going to just run quickly through a little bit more granular look at the different modules that we teach in each phase. So the reason we start off week 1 with design ethics and inclusive design is because product designers have a lot of responsibility. We think that you have an ethical obligation to consider how your work is going to impact other people. Okay, so we think about inclusive and accessible design as an innovative opportunity, and we build that into the foundation of the program day 1, week 1, so that when we're doing our research, when we're doing our ideation, when we're doing our prototype testing, right, we're always thinking about things like risk assessment. We're thinking about who could possibly be harmed or helped by our design work, right? So we really, we care from a human place about the type of work that we do. Foundational research really is all about trying to understand what we call the problem space, right? You can't truly solve a problem if you don't understand it. So we teach you to do credible interviews, okay, with users and with stakeholders. We teach you to do market research. We teach you to do competitive research. And how do you take all of that information and then find the insights and find the story that matters in all of that research? Once you've really understood the problem space as best as you can, it's then time to think about how do we then create solutions that solve these problems. And we start off with that with sketching and rapid prototyping. Okay, so this isn't about being an artist. This is about getting the ideas out of your head, right? Getting them onto a whiteboard or getting them onto a piece of paper. Moving into process UI, which is phase 2, we dive into the elements of visual composition, right? So doing layouts, using white space, using lines, colors, images, and really designing and shaping actions through something called affordances. Typography and color, again, part of the visual composition basics. Really helping your design stand out among all of the others out there, helping you design clear, accessible, and easily used interfaces. Interaction and animation, right, can be a very delightful differentiator in our products. So we take a deep dive into the principles of animation and the different patterns that you could employ in your designs. Moving into Studio One, information architecture, right? So information architecture is essentially the coming together of content, your users' needs, and the particular context with which they're experiencing your designs, and bringing all of that together and creating layouts and content that users can understand, that it's findable, it's scannable, and it's accessible. Design for the web. This is when we start talking about things like markup languages with HTML and CSS and responsive design. And we get into a tool called Webflow. Webflow is a really, really interesting and fun tool where you can create your own websites without actually having to do the code. So we do both. We teach you a little bit of the code, and then we teach you how to create the thing that you want to code in a tool called Webflow. And then we talk about material design, designing for Android, designing for iOS in the human interface guidelines. And how do we take those guidelines and principles and adapt them to a cross-device experience? In Studio 2, we kick off with information design. So information design are things like data visualizations, data privacy, designing dashboards. How do we take a data-driven environment and world that we all find ourselves in and craft that into a compelling user interface or dashboard? Okay, so we help you understand how do we take information and present it in a way that actually helps users decide what to do with the information. And I've talked about working in cross-functional teams with software engineers, project and product managers, data scientists, right? All of these different disciplines come together to create compelling products. So how does product design work with these other disciplines? And we teach you how to talk with them and how to present your work and how best to collaborate. And finally, we get into product strategy. Product strategy is all about using these different frameworks to identify business opportunities. Okay, so product design really has a lot to do with defining the strategy that a certain product or service is going to take. Again, it's not just what it looks like. It's not even just what it acts like. It's also, does the thing exist in a market, right? Through competitive research and understanding where we want to be in the market. So we teach you enough product strategy to help you really know and communicate where you want to be. And finally, in the portfolio phase, right? If we've taught you all of these skills, you've got to be able to talk about your work. You've got to be able to present your work in a compelling and interesting way. So we give you a ton of experience presenting your work to peers, for practice sessions for hiring managers. We have you do all kind of really interesting exercises and whiteboarding sessions to help you get prepared for your job search. We want you to be very comfortable going out and doing some of these hiring exercises. So we give you lots of opportunity to do that. And again, once you graduate, we give you tons of support through tech prep and career prep so that you can make sure that you bridge the gap between graduation and actually getting the job. So we're there along with you the whole way. So if you're in the live program, your daily schedule looks something like this. You usually kick off the day with a stand-up, talking about what you intend to accomplish that day, what blockers you might have, and then move into a time of lecture, reading, and discussion. Right after that, we usually have the first lab of the day. Labs are hands-on practice sessions where you get into Figma all together with your cohort and you start working on a design prompt or problem along with your instructor. Break for lunch, come back into lab 2. Lab 2 might involve extending lab 1. It might be a brand new lab, but usually it's going to have some type of group critique. So you might be presenting your work to each other, giving feedback and getting better, presenting project work, or meeting with your instructor one-on-one. And at the end of the day, we do a cool down or a stand down, which is if you set up your goals at the end of the day, you then revisit, did I accomplish my goals, right? If I didn't, why not? What can I do better the next day? So we build in these great accountability sessions throughout the program so that we can keep you on track, keep you on task and on goal. All right, so that's the core of the program that I wanted to go over. So at this time, I want to turn it over to Ash, who will help us guide the discussion part, where we're here to answer questions. So you can direct your question at me, at Sienna, at Sabrina, and yeah, we'll just open it up, and we can't wait to hear what you want to know.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and break the ice. Okay, let me start over. Okay, hey y'all, it's Sienna. So product design is really cool for the reason that in the process of sorry about the barking dogs, in the process of learning about how products are made and learning about different iterations and building a product, you'll start to see the world around you a lot different. You'll start to see how you can make ideas better. And if it's, I come from a music background. So for example, if it's a song, I'm like, hey, I think I can make that better by this, right? And so I'm ideating around it. And then I'm taking this idea and I'm asking friends about it, right? So now I'm going ahead and I'm bringing the community in, or I'm gathering or doing user research, and I'm not minimizing this whatsoever, because you can take the processes that you'll be learning in the product design course, and you can add that on top of building products anywhere else in any other modalities. So I really, being able to pitch an idea, it gives you the confidence to be able to pitch ideas to others. And again, this is even if you do, even if for whatever reason you graduate from the program and you say, you know what, this isn't for me, you have walked away with amazing skills that transferable skills that you'll be able to take anywhere with you. Who doesn't want to be more persuasive in the ideas that they're delivering? Who doesn't want to communicate their ideas, right? These are things that we want to be heard. And if you're here and you're interested in a product design course, a product design boot camp, you have ideas. That's why you're here. You want to learn how to build the idea. You want to learn how to share the idea and communicate it in a way that people will actually listen. So the soft skills that you'll build up, totally on board. And I am a hard sell, I will tell you. I try to see things as objectively as possible, but these soft skills, again, are very transferable. Even if you decide for whatever reason not to become a product designer, having the confidence to be able to sell what it is that you are sharing, or your ideas, that is the confidence that you will definitely be able to have moving forward. So just wanted to put that out there. Yeah. Hey, there's a really good question for you there, Josh. What's unique about studying at Flatiron as opposed to General Assembly?
Oh yeah, great question. So what I love about our program, number one, we really place a heavy emphasis on design ethics, inclusion, and accessibility. I think it's extremely important because product designers are out there in the world building for some companies that have influence worldwide. Okay, and we need product designers to be able to ask hard questions about what influence do I have in this process, right? What, how can I take responsibility, right? And ask the hard questions. So I think there's an incredible opportunity for product designers to be part of this conversation early on, before products get built, right? Not just after and try to figure out what to do now that bad things have happened, but to get in front of it. We also treat accessible design as an innovative opportunity. Closed captions are a wonderful example where they were created actually as an accessibility product, but we now use them all over the place. So there's amazing innovative opportunities if we just know where to look for them.
Josh, we have a flurry of questions.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So we can go ahead with Becca, who was the second question. Becca asked, do we have visiting critics or visiting members from the product design community? I know this is something we've been working on, so I know you're super excited to answer this, and then we'll get to the rest of them.
Yeah. Yes, we absolutely. We have at least 5 guest speakers, and I mean at least. I think in the last cohort, Sabrina, you can answer this too. You probably had more like 10 across the whole thing.
We sure did.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the different guest speakers that came in to speak to your cohort?
Yeah, we had a really great bunch of folks that came to speak to us that worked in different companies. What am I doing? Sorry, what's Sabrina doing now? Right now, Right now I'm still applying for a product design role, and I'm sorry, the question was about
the guest speakers, the different guest speakers that came in.
Yeah, so we had one that really stuck out to me, Natalie. She was actually an artist, and she's a product designer as well. She works for NCR, and she was a great connection for me because she helped me a lot with my resume, and she also took a look at my portfolio as well. And I've made some really great, solid connections that I could really lean on. So I definitely agree.
Yeah, you had a NASA engineer come in, I remember, to speak. That was awesome. We also have guest, let's see, who did we have in the last couple of weeks? We had a product designer from Oracle come in, senior product designer. We've had product managers and designers from IBM. We had someone from Facebook who graduated several years ago and is now a product designer at Facebook. So yes, we bring in hiring managers to talk about what they're looking for, to give you feedback on your work in progress, but also practitioners so that you can slowly ramp up and really understand what it's like to be a product designer day to day. Like, what are the daily experiences you're going to have with a team? Great question.
The next question I will take, it is tuition. Stephen had a question about students deferring tuition. So right now we offer deferment through our loan options. It tends to be popular for folks that are looking for a little bit more flexibility. So while I don't have the specific number, we do have options that align with that. So I would recommend looking into either Climb or Ascent, which are both of our loan partners. Now, the next few questions are sort of pretty similar. So we have a question that asked a little bit about our studio phases. Are we using our own ideas, or is this through similar themes? Then we have a question that builds off of that during the portfolio phase, whether or not students will be working with actual clients. So we can break that down a little bit. I think that's sort of like the recurring theme in quite a few of the questions that we have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So the projects and assessments that we have throughout the course, we create along with hiring managers. So you don't bring your own ideas, although there will certainly be an element of that, right? Because you're going to be creating solutions to a lot of the projects. Okay, so in that sense, absolutely, you're going to be bringing your own experiences and background and ideas to solve the problems. But the problems themselves and the constraints that exist around the projects, we co-create those along with hiring managers out in the industry, because we want you working on projects and problems that are just like what you would do in an entry-level job as a product designer, UX designer, or UI designer. In terms of the question, do you work with live clients? No. In this course, you do not work with any live clients. Because like I said, we actually source the projects and prompts from hiring managers and create them in tandem with them. I know some courses do have, or some competitors do have live client projects. And the only thing I can say about that is it can be a mixed bag. Sometimes clients are not, they don't provide as good of an experience for students and for groups as we would like. And so we found that this is a really good middle ground by co-creating the projects with the hiring managers rather than having to source live clients for the entirety of the project. So it gives us a bit more like safety to learn in than having to like push you out there into a live environment.
Awesome. Now, this one maybe we can talk about a little bit, but we had a few folks that actually joined in on the info session that I hosted last week. Obviously, we were discussing sort of like Mac requirements, so students are a little curious as to whether or not that is still something that they need to look forward to, or what would be the best sort of setup for them as students.
Yeah, do you know what I'm running right now? Is a Mac Mini with an external monitor. So it's a newer Mac Mini that cost about $650, I think. And then I have a big, 27-inch monitor that may have cost $150, $200. So you do not need like the latest MacBook Pro to run Figma, Webflow, or what we're running right now, Zoom, right? Zoom can be quite a memory glutton. Mac is not a requirement, okay? You can come through the course with a PC as long as it is a PC that meets the minimum requirements of being able to run Figma and Webflow in the browser, okay? That's the great thing about both of those tools is they're browser-based, right? So as long as you can run Chrome and run both of those and Zoom at the same time, then you're probably gonna be really good to go.
Perfect. The next clump of questions is regarding the part-time program. Students are curious as to how that's structured, what measures are in place to sort of keep students on pace, and also if students will have the same part-time students, excuse me, will have the same opportunity to make connections, just like Sabrina did through her journey.
Yeah, for the part-time program, we do have a lot of accountability measures. We ask that you check in and meet with an instructor live. Ash, you'll have to help me remember. Is it once every 2 weeks? I think it depends on the pacing, right?
Yeah,
But the
so
number of times is the same.
right. So it'll depend on the cadence that a student is sort of working through their program at. Usually your one-on-ones will be either once a week or once bi-weekly, depending on what works best for you.
Yeah, and you do get feedback from the same instructor. You'll get it through Figma comments, so they'll actually be able to see your work in progress in Figma and go in and drop comments. Some instructors will send you live video walkthroughs of them giving you feedback on your work. So this is in addition to the one-on-one sessions. We also offer study groups so that people working on in the same phase can come together and meet and work through some of the problems. So we have in-person study groups, we have the Zoom study groups, and we also have like Slack as a tool where we see a lot of Flex students collaborating, sharing resources, posting, hey, I can't quite get through this one thing. Can someone help me? And another Flex student will kind of come in to support. So yeah, we have a lot of different avenues for Flex support.
Yeah, I also really enjoy tossing out our community team. So aside from your amazing instructors, you'll also have access to our community team who hosts a variety of different events, not just catered to product design, but if you're interested in engaging with other students, they have new student mixers and game nights and movie nights, just a really great way for you to break the ice, get to know people, and sort of like build out your community over here at Flatiron School. Um, Next sort of clump of questions. I feel like one of these is actually for Sabrina. So Sabrina, I'm going to toss the mic your way. Vanessa asked, was there anything about Flatiron School that was a pleasant surprise to you? Something that you weren't expecting, but really made a difference or impression on you?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And that's a great question. For me, a pleasant surprise for me was the sense of community. Absolutely. When we, even when we started, we had kind of set the tone that this is a safe community to share ideas, and we could definitely lean on each other uh, through class and even outside of class. I've made some friends as well that I can count on, and we have a really strong network. So that was a pleasant surprise for me. I thought I would be trucking along all by myself and working on my own, but this is definitely not that kind of environment. You do learn a lot about other people and collaborate. So that was a pleasant surprise for me.
I love hearing that. I feel like so I work on admissions over here, and during interviews, I tell students all the time, it's very important for you to remember that everybody in your cohort is going through the same journey as yourself. You might not all be starting at the same place, but you all have very similar goals. So I feel like that's what Sabrina is speaking to a little bit. Obviously, just having that camaraderie and really being able to support each other throughout this entire journey. The last question, actually not last question, but last question in the chat box before we dive into some Q&A questions. Rupit asked, what is the difference between UX design and product design? They noticed that there is a bit of similarity, and another student expressed interest in wanting to hear a little bit about the differences as well.
Yeah, I'm going to actually kick that over to both Sienna and Sabrina, because I noticed that one of the questions was about, does the class provide skills for both? So I'd love for Sabrina to answer about the class providing skills for both UX and product design. And then Sienna, since you've worked as a product designer for Dell, I wonder if you could speak to some of the differences between those.
All right, you can go ahead first, Sabrina.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I definitely feel well equipped and knowing the different roles and the difference between UX design and product design. So what the school does a great job is with doing is setting a foundation of all the skill sets that you need to be a UX designer, whether it's like market research, domain research, card sorting, all of the little tools that you could add to your tool belt um, to be a great UX designer. And then for product design as a whole, there's like tons of exercises to really test, your skills when it comes to interface design or interaction design, and everything as a whole, and working as a team, and also knowing a little bit about code as well. You have like a good understanding of different roles working all together in one ecosystem. And I'll pass it on.
So I'll share the greater and the not greater parts of it, right? So I took a boot camp. I went through a boot camp for UX design, and it was great and terrible. It was great because I learned most of what I needed to learn for UX, but it was terrible because it was really bad delivery. And so that really set me up to go and find the information that I needed myself. And so I pretty much taught myself the second half of the boot camp. But it made me incredibly resourceful, and it brought about a lot of curiosity. And in fact, from there, I went on and started working with Dell as a product designer, or on the product design team as a product designer. And the badder, I made that word up, it's not real, don't use it. Like the not greatest part about that was that they ended up discontinuing our project idea, or kind of putting it on the shelf. But we were creating an API dashboard for developers that wanted to come in and take these APIs and implement them for different softwares across Dell. It's the most that I'm able to say about it. But they ended up putting it on the shelf for a little bit. So that was the not greatest part about it. But not everybody takes to products, right? Takes to these ideas. But on the other hand, working for Facebook, releasing a product with them also, although all of the ideas that we were all tossing into the pot to design, I'll keep this really short, it still ended up being a great product, although I think my ideas would have made it a little better. But all in all, UX design supports product design, and product design needs UX designers. And so, if you're thinking about either, and if you have the option to do both, to do one of both, I would definitely go with product design, because it's all encompassing.
I feel like that was the best way to sum it up. Kudos to Tim. I think he's on here, but he works in marketing, and he described product design as if, you're thinking about full stack software engineering. Like, it's all encompassing. It's not just you learn one coding language, you learn enough to be well-rounded. And that's exactly what you're getting with this program. We have a question from Joseph. Should one have a good understanding of HCI for him, her, to go the product design realm? If not, what will you do? Excuse me, sorry, misread that. What will you do to make sure that the student understands the HCI concept?
So when you say HCI, human computer interaction,
that's what I'm assuming. It wasn't specific, it's just the abbreviation.
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, so much of modern day UX design and product design is inspired from and pulls from the rich foundations of human computer interaction. Human computer interaction really started with physical product design. So if you think of like the US military, right, they were making, helicopter cockpits and things like that. And so they found that if they brought researchers in early in the process and tried to figure out, the best layout of the controls and things like that, the form factor, how it fit the pilot, right, that's where interaction design really started. And then they started combining that with behavioral design and psychology, right? So those things come together and form a lot of the rich foundation that UX pulls from. Okay, so when we talk about understanding human behavior, when we talk about understanding customers' needs and motivations and pain points, right? It's kind of the same theory, it's the same idea. So even though human computer interaction is really more of like the academic history of things. And so there is like a really rich repository of academic work out there on human computer interaction. And it's absolutely true that almost everything in our course pulls from and is inspired by human computer interaction. But we also pull from these other traditions too, okay? It's not just the one academic history. We pull from some more modern day, business practices. So when I talk about product strategy, right, and product thinking, that's also part of it, right? We pull from some business frameworks so that you understand like the position, the market position of the product that you're designing for. Because we believe that if you know more about that, then you're going to design a better product and you're going to be a better collaborator with people like product managers and marketers, right? And so yeah, it pulls from so many different rich traditions. But ultimately, all of these things have to work out in the product designer job market, right? So we're constantly bringing graduates and hiring managers back in and asking them, how well did this prepare you for what you're working on, right? Or we'll track, 2 years down the road, we'll come back and ask like, okay, what's changed in 2 years? How can we really understand what we're teaching you and how that translates to your day-to-day work out there in getting a job?
Awesome. Rob, we're getting to your question now. Is there a disadvantage in taking the course online full-time versus live full-time? I can take that. No, there really isn't necessarily a disadvantage. It really depends on what works best for you. If you decide to study with us in person, live, the only campus we're currently offering that at is our New York City campus. The next start date is slated for June 6th. Very excited. Essentially, the day-to-day shakes out exactly the same. You'll learn over the same course of weeks. So it's broken down the same as it would be for our online full-time folks. The only difference is that our in-person would be a 9 to 6 Monday through Friday. Our online, because we are sort of serving all of our students across the US, would be a 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time, which would shake out to a 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. start for our West Coast students. And then Sabrina, we have an anonymous question for you, or a question from an anonymous folk out there. They wanted to hear a little bit about what were some of the challenges you faced when transitioning from healthcare to product design, and how did Flatiron help you face those challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. My biggest challenge when changing careers from healthcare to product design, they're completely different and the same in so many ways. But it was really just getting my head around learning a new skill set. Really, that's basically what it came down to. It's really just believing in yourself. I know it sounds very cheesy, but it's so true. You really just have to believe that you could expand your mind and learn more and become, a new version of yourself, honestly. And then one day you will realize that everything you learned before in your past, job experiences help you be a better product designer. It's such a diverse field, and every experience that you have does help you become more empathetic with people in general, and it's a very empathetic field. So don't worry. Everything that you've done is not a waste of time, not in product design anyways.
Amazing. Hopefully that was helpful to Anonymous out there. And then Anonymous number two, I can take this as well. What's the average time that it takes for Flatiron graduates to get a job in the field? If y'all have the time, we have a very, very thorough job outcomes report on our website. I like to joke it is borderline a novel. It's 72 pages total, if I'm not mistaken, but it does dive into the nitty gritty details. To give you the overview, on average, the first 50% of those job seeking students found jobs within about 2 months of their job search, and the remainder of those students found jobs within a 6-month mark. So that's what you can go ahead and have as your sort of like intended timeline. But I would also say just take this with a grain of salt. Obviously, this will vary student to student, and it'll also depend on whether or not you're open to relocation or if you want to stay where you're currently at.
Can I speak into that?
Oh yeah, go for it.
So in my experience, remember, so we're starting off this story at Sienna just finished, or air quote, graduated from this UX, this terribly put together, not Flatiron, it was not Flatiron, okay, terribly put together UX bootcamp. And so because the bootcamp itself did not prepare me with everything that I needed, I went out and I did a lot of research on other UX designers that were doing what I wanted to do. And so what do their portfolios look like? What do their LinkedIn profiles look like? What is it that they're doing? What are they focusing on? Because I want to work, I want to have the job that they have. And so because of the work that I put in, I was employed full-time within 3 months of graduating from the program. And so I also want to add, in addition to what you will do during the product design course at Flatiron, and what you do after during the tech prep course and the career prep also, that you will also go through, and that's also included in the product design bootcamp. It's also how much work you put into it, right? Because we're not going to put your portfolio together. You're going to do that. We're not going to figure out what your passions are and what direction you want to go in. If it's going to be creating product design with a focus on healthcare, if it's product design with a focus on, if for whatever reason, if you can marry the two, like NFTs, or like if you want to create product design around rings or architecture or bottles that hold coconut water. Like if these are the things that you want, those are things for you to figure out and ask yourself throughout the course, but you are doing the hard work. You can't go through the program and then think that we're gonna do everything for you afterwards. And I just want to say that that is what will get you, that's what will bring visibility to your portfolio, and that's what's going to help you shine. We will make sure that you have everything on the way there, but you have to do the work as well. You have to want it. So it also depends very much on you too.
I could not agree more. I'm a big proponent of you get out what you put into something. So give it your all and you'll get all of that right back. Becca, I can answer your question as well. Do you take an admissions assessment for the product design program admissions process? And what tips do you have for admissions and the interview process? I am resident admissions product design lead over here. We do have an admissions assessment. It actually it covers all of our programs, so everyone will have to go through it. It is a sort of like general logic quiz. If you're familiar with a CCAT, that's what it is. If you are not, it is a 15-minute assessment that essentially will quiz your general logic skills. So you'll have questions on vocabulary and general arithmetic. You'll also have questions that will test your spatial sort of like recognition that will have you decide what pattern will come next in that sequence. The best way to prepare for that, if you have not taken one of those, we have a blog post on our website. You can find it in the admissions section of our blog. It is, if I'm not mistaken, titled How to Pass the Flatiron Assessment. It's a very plain term, but it walks you through some sample questions. That way you can get your bearings and feel a little bit more comfortable with what you'll be seeing on there. And then in terms of the interview process, everyone that helps students on the product design team or in admissions in general is super friendly and usually very bubbly. And I tell students all the time, I try to make the interview as least anxiety inducing as possible. So it really just is a way for you to get to know us a little bit better, and ultimately us get to know you a bit more. So the best advice I can give is just be yourself, show us how excited you are about learning this, and what made you, decide that product design was the best place for you and the best place to take your career. And then the next question, Joseph, I can also answer that. How do you deal with time for live class sessions? For example, students that are outside of the US and taking the class in a live capacity. Right now, caveat, we can only admit students that are residing in South Africa, and the rest of Africa right now, we cannot, unfortunately, just due to legal restrictions and education. So there are certain loopholes, not loopholes, but certain holes. I don't know what I want to say. I'm trying to think of the adjective that I want to use, the noun I want to use, but it's not coming to me. But there are certain processes we need to follow in order to make sure that we can offer our program outside of the US. And so right now, South Africa is the only place on that list in the continent of Africa. And typically I would recommend that students that are not in US time zones to take the Flex program. The live program is definitely still on the table if a person is interested, but our time zones, our live classes only operate on US time zones. So it can be very difficult to keep up. You might have to end up studying with us from, midnight to 5 a.m. Obviously that might not be the actual schedule, but it'll end up being a lot more inconvenient for you and sort of like your life if you decide to go with the live. So the Flex is usually the best way to go. And then last question is from Leah, who I remember from also last week's info session. With this course, will we receive a certification for UX or UI once completed, or will it be a single certification that encompasses multiple things? And so I know that for the sake of all of our programs, we do give students a certificate of completion upon completing the program, but it wouldn't be a sort of like hyper specific certification. Obviously, the sort of mastery of UX UI will be exhibited in your portfolio, which will speak leaps and bounds to who you are as a designer. So I tell students all the time, that is your jam, that's what you want to spend time on, and that will be what will show potential future employers who you are and what you can bring to the table. Thank you. For anybody that was wondering about the admissions assessment, Tim, +1 for being a great sort of like side panelist. He went ahead and added our blog post that walks you through tips on successfully completing the assessment. So definitely check that out. Last question now. What is your current support like during and after graduating? We have a very extensive career services program. If you've heard Sienna and also Joshua mentioned our tech support, not tech support, tech prep.
Yep, tech prep.
I'm like, I'm forgetting the words. Our tech prep. So essentially you'll have workshops that you'll be completing throughout your journey here at Flatiron School while you're a student. And then once you graduate from your program, you'll start working one-on-one with your career coach, who will be there for you for pretty much 180 days after completing the program. They help with all the things. And aside from just your product design program, you'll also have tech prep, career prep, which is a separate sort of educational track here, where you'll have, if I'm not mistaken, about 100 lessons of career prep. So super extensive. Your career coach will help with navigating everything. So updating your resume, conducting mock interviews, helping you navigate the job landscape, outreach strategy, all the things that will help you be your best self once you are going ahead and looking for your next move.
Okay, this is my last bit, I promise, and then whatever after that. I'm sorry. I really and speaking about objectivity, and what I don't want you to hear me doing is trying to convince you that this is a great program. What I do want you to hear me saying is that I had to be my own career prep coach, and the hours and hours and hours and hours that I spent researching and comparing information and watching recruiter videos on YouTube and reaching out to my network on LinkedIn for more help. Like the fact that, and I've gone through the career prep curriculum, what they have is everything that I needed. And so to have a human on the other side walking you through is a much greater experience than you having to wake up and trying to encourage yourself. Hey, listen, if you can do it, you know? But it's always great to have somebody who's well-versed. And I think somebody on the team is, she's an actress, and she doesn't act for her, damn, I shouldn't have said that, but like for her role, but like she's very encouraging, and she's just so vivacious. So anywho, having people that are cheering you on throughout the process is amazing. So that's the career prep portion of it, and it's A1 sauce. That's really good sauce. Okay.
It is really good sauce.
I feel like the LOL might be in agreement, but definitely good sauce. I don't think we have any more questions. I think we cleared all of those out. I did want to take another moment just to thank everyone that is still here for spending a Wednesday night with us. I know for some of you folks on the East Coast, it might be past dinner time. I know my stomach is rumbling a little bit, but I really enjoyed being able to be here with y'all and to chat. If you all think of any questions, we are so happy to answer those. You'll actually receive an email from us with just like a thanks for joining us, and you'll be able to have a link to our admissions team there. You can schedule a call with the team, and they'll be, like I said, more than happy to answer any questions. You'll also receive a recording of this. So if you're like me or Dory and are very forgetful, you'll have all of the details you need in that recording. But appreciate you all. And I hope everybody has a happy Wednesday evening.